So some of you might be familiar with the Veronica Guerin case already, and if not, go and check out the Veronica Guerin movie if you have an hour and a half to 2 hours to spare. I definitely recommend watching that. I'm just going to go through a few key points in Veronica Guerin's life and also the story of her death. Now, if you're new to my channel, then welcome. I hope that you enjoy this video and the type of content on my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel, and subscribe if you enjoyed it, because it helps push my channel on YouTube. And of course, if you're already subscribed and you've watched my other videos on this channel, which is my Ireland's Vanishing Triangle series, I hope you did enjoy it and found it somewhat interesting. It's a very sad series, but I will make sure to keep you up to date on this channel with any updates that happen in any of those cases. So make sure that you turn on the notification bell when you do subscribe. So into the Veronica Guerin case. She was an Irish journalist and she was born in Dublin in 1958, was the second youngest of 5 siblings, and she grew up in Artane in Dublin with her parents Christopher and Bernadette. She went to St Mary's Holy Faith Catholic School in Killister, and she was really sporty. She loved her sports, so she played a lot of basketball, football, soccer. Over here we call it soccer, but it's football, and camogie, which if you're not from Ireland, you won't know what camogie is, so Google it. And when Veronica Guerin completed her Leaving Cert in 1979, she went on to study accountancy in Trinity College in Dublin, which is one of our top graded colleges here in Ireland. While in college, Veronica joined the Ógra Fianna Fáil party, which is the youth wing of a political party here in Ireland, and she became chair of the Dublin North Central branch in 1979. Veronica Guerin was very close to her family, and when she completed her accountancy degree in Trinity, she joined her father's accountancy firm. Unfortunately though, 3 years later, her father Christopher passed away very suddenly, and then his firm was sold off in 1981. This then gave Veronica the opportunity to change her career path. Veronica started her own public relations company after this, and it was known as Guerin Public Relations Limited. She married a construction engineer who she had met when they were both in the Ógra Fianna Fáil party, and then by 1990 she gave birth to a baby boy named Cahill, which is a very Irish name. Unfortunately, Guerin's public relations company didn't do so well, so she left it and instead worked as a PR consultant for a travel agency. She also started to write a gossip column for a magazine called Phoenix. This was her first taste of journalism. And before long, she started writing business stories for the Sunday Business Post. And then in 1993, she joined the Sunday Tribune. Her scoops for the paper included outrageous scandals, such as an exclusive interview in November of that year with Bishop Eamon Casey in Ecuador. The former Bishop of Galway had fled Ireland after the revelation that he had fathered a child, which was very taboo in Ireland in the time, and still is to this day. She found a talent for investigating such scandalous stories, and in 1994 she joined the Sunday Independent as an investigative reporter. By now, Guerin had become a bit of a celebrity in the reporter world. She was known for the way she had approached her news stories. She specialised in crime stories and had craved first-hand information. She pursued a story straight to the original source, with little regard for her own safety. This is how she gained respect from both Gardai and criminals alike, and how she was able to gain such detailed information for her news reports. Guerin had become outraged by the underground criminal activity that flooded the streets of Dublin, and the inability of the Gardai to bring crime bosses to justice.
Do you think the guards have sufficient powers to handle?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. Publicising matters and bringing to the attention of the public generally a culture that exists in our society that nobody knows anything about. Now, if we publicise it and highlight it, politicians are forced to address these issues, because the most frightening thing is that crime is just the extent of the crime in Dublin City particularly is just alarming, and the the inability of the guards, because of the legislation, to really do anything about it or to properly address it is something that has to be publicised. Now, when we do it, we're effectively bringing pressure onto the criminals, and either by guards or by legislation, and they just don't like it.
So she launched a one-woman crusade to bring down the gangs. She typically worked out of her car as opposed to an office, sometimes staying on a story for week on week, long after many reporters would have given up. Sometimes she would even camp out on somebody's doorstep for days until they would agree to talk to her. She preferred to go directly to the criminals themselves, then wait for information from the Gardai, managing to persuade many of them to talk to her and giving them details of their activities. To avoid Irish libel laws, which made it illegal for Irish journalists to mention the wrongdoers by name, she would refer to them in her articles by their street names, or using pseudonyms such as the Monk, the Coach, or the Penguin. In September of 1994, Guerin wrote an article on the life of the high-living Dublin drug kingpin Martin Cahill, known as the General. And 1 month later, she would experience her first serious repercussion from her investigations. So while playing with her 4-year-old son at home in her cottage in Cloughren, North Dublin, 2 bullets were fired through the window. But luckily Guerin and her son escaped unscathed. But even that didn't deter Veronica, and she continued to uncover the truth behind Dublin's drug lords. A couple of months later, the Sunday Independent published another article from Guerin, in which she had interviewed a known conman, Jerry the Monk Hutch, who was reportedly the chief suspect in a heist where £3 million was stolen from an armed robbery of a Brinks Allied Bank security depot. The very next day after the article was released, a man dressed head to toe in motorcycle gear knocked on Veronica's door, and when she answered, he pointed a revolver at her head. He then lowered it and shot her in the thigh as a warning. The man fled and was never identified.
And I can hear I can really still hear the sound of the shot, coupled with my roars, just that noise, like a thundering noise. And a stinging sensation just a sting in my leg. And I heard the guy's footsteps, the wooden floors, and I've been shot.
Luckily, Guerin survived, and when she left the hospital, she asked her husband to take her to see every crime boss that she knew, to make a point that she could not be intimidated. After this, her employer had security cameras installed in her home and arranged for around-the-clock Garda escorts. But Veronica found that this actually impeded in her investigations, and so she cancelled it shortly after. 3 months later, in December of 1995, Guerin's bravery and persistence in the face of danger earned her the prestigious International Press Freedom Award from the Committee to Protect Journalists. In 1995, following up on another high-profile suspected drug dealer, Guerin paid a visit to the prominent convicted criminal John Gilligan's stud farm. John Gilligan led the notorious gang that flooded Ireland with cannabis shipments from Holland in the 1990s. The gang referred to itself as the Firm. Gilligan's associates included Patrick Eugene Dutchy Holland, who was buying and selling Gilligan's hash, Charles Bowden, who was Gilligan's courier, Paul Ward, who was another distributor of the hash, Russell Warren, who was Gilligan's accounts clerk, and Brian Meehan and John Traynor, who were Gilligan's number 2 in the hierarchy of the gang. In the early 1990s, Gilligan's gang was flush with cash. Their lifestyle involved flights to exotic countries whenever they wished, expensive hotels, shopping trips, and hard to get tickets to any event, all acquired courtesy of the profits of crime. John Traynor had facilitated Gilligan's coup by performing the biggest double cross in Irish criminal history. In early 1993, Traynor's former boss Martin Cahill had been persuaded by Traynor to come up with €600,000 to buy into Gilligan's first big hash shipment. In return, Cahill would be paid back twice the value of the loan. Traynor called in some favours with his friends from the INLA to kill Martin Cahill for the price of €30,000. As it happened, They hated Martin Cahill and so agreed. In turn, the INLA negotiated a deal with the IRA that involved Gilligan handing over a shipment of handguns. This deal between the IRA and Gilligan was to have the IRA take responsibility for Martin Cahill's death. The IRA agreed to the deal and claimed the assassination, citing that it was because of one of their men was shot dead at a social event, and they believed that the people that were responsible for his death were connected with Martin Cahill.
The ambush happened shortly after 3 o'clock in Ranelagh, a well-known bedsitter suburb on the south side of the city. Residents said the calm of the afternoon was shattered by gunfire. When they ran out to investigate, they saw a black Renault 5 embedded in a garden fence. Martin Cahill, who lived nearby, was slumped in the driver's seat.
So on August 14th in 1994, a lone gunman wearing a reflective workman's vest approached Cahill's car as it slowed down at the junction between Oxford and Charleston roads in Ranelagh. The gunman fired at close range using a .375 revolver, hitting Cahill in the side of the face. He then leaned inside the smashed window and shot Cahill another 4 times in the torso, before escaping the scene on the back of a nearby motorcycle. No one was ever arrested or charged with Cahill's murder, but the admission by the IRA meant that the murder of a gangster little known outside of the Republic of Ireland was of little consequence in the bigger game of ending the troubles in Northern Ireland. But Martin Cahill's death prompted the interest of Veronica Guerin. So going back to September in 1995, Veronica Guerin was at John Gilligan's stud farm and questioned him on how he was able to afford such a luxurious lifestyle with no known income. Gilligan didn't take kindly to this and so responded by ripping open her shirt to check if she was wearing a microphone before beating her. He then later called her at her home and threatened to kidnap and rape her son and then kill her if she published anything about him. But this didn't stop Veronica, and she filed an assault charge against him. On the evening of the 25th of June in 1996, days before Gilligan and Guerin were due to be in court on these assault charges, Gilligan's drug gang members all met up at the distribution premises on the Greenmount Industrial Estate. There, they acquired a Colt Python revolver loaded with .357 Magnum semi-wad cutter bullets, and this was intended for one purpose. The next day, on June 26th, Veronica attended the district court to face speeding charges, receiving a fine and a suspended sentence. Shortly after 1 p.m, Guerin was on her way back when she had stopped at a set of red traffic lights on the Nace dual carriageway, unaware that she was being followed. Guerin was on the phone to a friend when 2 men pulled up beside her. One of them got off of the motorbike and shot her 5 times in the neck and torso, killing her almost instantly. The man then got back on the motorbike and fled the scene before anyone nearby even had the chance to react. About an hour after Guerin's murder, Bowden, Meehan and Mitchell all met up on Moore Street, out in the open in the public eye, to place themselves away from the incident. But eventually Bowden was arrested, along with the other members of Gilligan's gang who had not fled the country. Bowden agreed to turn state's witness and became the first person to enter into the Republic's witness security program. Granted immunity from prosecution for Guerin's murder, he was the only witness to give evidence against all 4 drug gang members at their trials in the Special Criminal Court. In 1997, Bowden named Holland as the man he supplied the .357 Magnum gun to, although Holland denied this right up until his death in 2009.